So welcome everybody. We are extremely happy and extremely honored and also extremely grateful that we can be here at this event, co-hosting this event in our first partnership with the New York Times. And thank you, Stephen. I can introduce Stephen Dunbar-Johnson, the president of the New York Times, that made it possible that we are here. And thank you very much for that.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you, and I'll explain a little bit in some detail why I'm so happy to be here. But do you want to say anything else before I do that? Or?
I will say it afterwards.
Okay. So Mikolaj said to me up in the ballroom earlier, this is like the Starship Enterprise. This is exactly how you shouldn't do it. Now, I didn't take that too personally. And I'll give you some context. We've had the New York Times 2 days of, I think, of very enriching conversations and powerful conversations, but they've been very much audience sitting and receiving with panelists. And throughout the last 2 days, I've been thinking of what we did in Glasgow last year at the New York Times, because we, with the help of Es Devlin, created a forest, a live forest of over 190 trees. We called it the Conference of the Trees. And all of our conversations, which lasted for 9 days, over, I think it was 96 sessions, was in this fantastic environment of living, breathing trees with mulch on the floor. And so you felt and smelt, and it even created its own ecosystem after a few days. Butterflies started emerging, spider webs were on the trees. And the reason I mention this is because it helped induce a very different atmosphere in the talks, and which is why I was so pleased that Extreme came to us, and we could create this atmosphere down here. And then with Mikolaj coming and talking about what we could do with indigenous communities in this special space, and how we could use this space to connect with indigenous communities and have a moment of reflection. There's so much to learn from indigenous communities, what we've inherited and what we've lost. So how can we spend time reflecting and thinking in this special environment? So I'm really delighted to be here. I'm very honored to work with Thermart on this project. I'm very grateful for Extreme also for putting this together. So, and I'm also very grateful for God for giving us the moon this evening and this very special evening. So thank you.
Big round of applause. So as you know, the motto of our whole COP program is Possible Futures. Why Possible Futures? Because the future that we're building is either possible or it is not possible. When we're looking at the contemporary situation of the world and we're trying to think ahead, if we continue what we are doing, it leads us, unfortunately, into non-possible futures. These are the futures of Star Trek. A lot of science fiction movies actually are presenting us futures where you see rooms that are very clean, very architectural, sometimes very beautiful, but they are never integrating plants. So if you know how the human organism is working, if you know how the planetary organism is working, if you studied, Lynn Margulis, the symbiotic planet, or James Lovelock, the Gaia hypothesis, you know that without plants, we cannot survive. It is an impossible future when we create a future where plants are not in the same proportion that they are on this planet, represented with 85% of all the biomass. Now we know that in the past thousands of years, especially in the past 250 years since the second wave of the industrialization, we created more anthropogenic mass through our urban developments, through our infrastructure investments, than all the biomass on the planet. This is already a proportionality that is non-possible. It's an impossible proportionality, and we will not be able to create a possible future out of this proportionality. But how can we change it? You mentioned Es Devlin. The reason that she created this Conference of Trees was that we introduced her to Stefano Mancuso, the great botanist, a botanist that was also at the very origins of the Bosco Verticale. We were talking yesterday with Stefano Boeri, the architect that created the Bosco Verticale in Milan. High razor completely covered by plants, to bring back plants into our urban environment and to understand them as an elemental, existential element of our infrastructure that provides us with clean water, clean air. Unfortunately, only with our rationality, we are not really able to reconnect to this plant life. We need to go back, and we need to go back to the ancestral wisdom, to the forest, and to the wisdom keepers that actually kept this wisdom for us and can teach us how our relationship with plants and with the natural environment can actually be productive and can be true. So I'm extremely grateful that we have all these wisdom keepers that are here today, that they followed basically our invitation, and that they went on this long journey, because you are going on a very long journey when you're coming from the Brazilian rainforest. It takes you 4 days, yeah? It takes you first from the Yawanawa village, Nova Esperança, like 10 hours on the river, and then you have to go with different plane connections, and then you arrive here, and it's a very, very long journey that represents, in a way, the distance between our worlds. And we are extremely happy, and I want a big round of applause for all our indigenous communities that came here. And I'm very happy to introduce now Rasu Yawanawa, that will do a prayer for us to open this conference with something that is not only words spoken, but emotions spoken. And a big round of applause for him.
Takawai Hanuma Takawasho Niyoi 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 Awama Sharata Sharata Atunawa Shinaram Shinama Shinama Shinarua Tapavo Tapake Mukina Kawane Kawane no Kayavita Kaina Kawashom 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 Awa ama wanana 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 Atumana no shoma nurani kaya e kaya e kaya e Atunawa shinara 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 nuwa kau nuwa nuwa shenuma wakarakane ashoma ashonki Nokaya takawa takawai 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 nawavo nawavo no atoya vima shokoi pakashon nawawai oriya orima orima hawashani reve reve ma aton sai tenevo tenevo teneke nawashina pakama pakamai pakamai pakakakai akai awama wanana 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 Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is so powerful that you can feel it with your heart. And there's somebody that I want now to invite to the stage that actually was the first one to bring me to the indigenous territories, to the Xingu people. This is Alexander Alat. Big round of applause for Alex. So Alex is combining the ancestral wisdom with the modern urban development. We just visited his project in Sao Paulo. The first phase is open. It's a vertical garden also. It's a vertical forest. It's Mata. Mata stands for forest. And he will present together with Patricia. Patricia, can I invite you to the stage? Also big round of applause for Patricia. Patricia Allen, Aya Earth Partners, created the Amazonian Report, a report that is showcasing the first time how important the forest is when it stays alive from an economical perspective. So everybody that can read only numbers and understand only numbers can also understand this, and I think this is extremely important. And then Wanda Vitoto, leader and teacher in the rescue of Bio Vitoto indigenous language, health professional, social entrepreneur. Thank you so much for being here. And Carlos Nobre, Brazilian Earth System scientist. We are happy and delighted to have you here and to present the Amazonian Report, also with Ilona Szabo from the Igarape Institute. Oh my goodness. So please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Giovanna Quelli with the Igarape Institute. Ilona missed her flight in Cairo, so I'm here to try to represent her.
Perfect. So I will now give you the microphone and we'll go off the stage. Thank you very much. Big round of applause.
Thank you. We have a panel here, and before that, we will give you a little bit of the highlights on our first production together here, the Aya report. It's the Amazon's Marathon. But before I get started, I would like my partner, co-founder of Aya, Alex Allard, to give the initial words for us. And after that, we will present a little bit about the report and then come back to this panel with these amazing panelists that are here with us. Alex, thank you very much for this partnership and for being a very inspiring, crazy entrepreneur that's been helping us to believe and to rescue our ancestrality in Brazil, in São Paulo, and thanks a lot for the work you've been doing.
Thank you. I just make a very short introduction. I mean, what is happening today is I would say, the beginning of a story that we have been preparing for many, many, many years. When I started to do this project in Brazil, where I realized that Brazil needed to build its own self-esteem, you know, to realize that it had in his hand the green superpower of our planet. And that's how the journey started. And it actually materialized when I found a place in the center of São Paulo that is called Matarazzo. And the idea of this place is to bring together all the enlightened people who believe that they can make Brazil the green superpower of the world. Starting with some people that we have to believe in, which are the leadership, which unfortunately, you know, have been focused on extracting during 500 years the wealth of this country. And the idea was to show them that there is much better than extraction, there is preservation. And that path of preservation, I tell you, for Brazil is not an easy path. It's easy to be said, but it's about revolutionizing an entire economy that has not been so successful so far, but it's about changing completely the habits of an economy. So how do you change that? And that's a big issue that we all face today with climate change. You know, we're in a world that works with an existing economic model, and we do to bring a new one, and we need the people to not only love it, but adhere and invest in it. And today, despite what is said every day at the COP, with the trillions of dollars that everybody is throwing at the face of the journalist, it's not happening. And it's not happening because the world lacks, unfortunately, people who are able to bridge this gap, who are able to make it desirable enough so that the financiers of this world invest, and who are make it, you know, also aspirational enough so that the consumers, the people, endorse this and show that there is a true economic model at scale to make this happen. And that was the idea behind Matarazzo. And there we plan to have 20 million visitors, which are all going to, you know, enter into our world, which is a zero carbon, net zero carbon world, but also a very inclusive world. The main project and the most important inside Matarazzo is, of course, what we call the Aya initiative, which materialized with the building, but in which we gather the economic machine of Brazil, which are the entrepreneurs, the bankers, and everybody. And one of the big projects that we have inside this Aya is to show that, unlike what people have treated it for, and I've been part of these people, you know, unlike treating Amazonia as a problem, we have to treat Amazonia as the solution, as an economic solution, as a way to drive prosperity. So I won't say more, but what happened is a few years ago, I met this extraordinary woman who was working in government, and I saw her passion, and from our common goals, we decided together to create the Aya initiative. And today we are presenting this report that is, I think, very, very important, because it can be a path for Brazil, a path for to make Brazil a very prosperous economy thanks to Amazonia. Thank you very much.
I'll go here because we will show some slides here. For those who know me, you know I'm addicted to slides and numbers. I can't get rid of them. But one thing that I'd like to say before we get started here is that I'm a dreamer, that I sometimes fear the dreams. I don't know if I ever had that before, because sometimes the dreams can come through. And when they do, you don't know what to do. And this is exactly what's kind of happening right now here, because we are putting together people who work in business, in economy, in social sector, in arts, in culture, in public sector. We are outside. We have green, we have water. We had an amazing blessing from the Yawanawas. And we will be talking about the future of the economy of Brazil, and hopefully about the future of the economy of our world. And I dreamed about this, and if I would, pick a place, pick a crowd of people, pick a moment in time to make that happen, it would be exactly here and now and in this way. And this morning I was fearing this dream because I said, oh my God, we'll put all those people in that place. Isn't that too hippie? We'll be talking about serious stuff. Maybe people find us a little bit crazy, a little bit awkward. What about the people that like art? They will not like the report because I have slides and numbers that maybe people will not connect. So I was afraid of this dream, And then I went to this museum that the United Nations is preparing with an amazing woman called Molly. She got all these grants to prepare a museum about the United Nations. This museum would be in Norway. She got a grant of $200 million for the museum. Then she said that the museum should not be in Norway. Should be a museum that would travel the world, and would be a remote museum connecting people all over the world. And I went to this museum today here, it's a container. And I had an experience to connect to people in Barbados. And the people who were in Barbados were having a flood. And we were talking about climate change. And suddenly, instead of talking about numbers or about our differences, we are talking about our similarities and about how important it is for us to learn to live in a community. But living in a community is not expecting that everyone is going to behave like you. It's not expecting that everybody's going to look like you. It's really being able to open up, be curious, and reunite our world that's so divided right now. And Brazil is in the epicenter of that. And that's what I'll be talking about now. And that's why this report is so important to us. In the beginning, I said that it should be called the Amazon's Marathon, and everybody was against it. They said, no, marathon is too boring, it's tiring, we will give up before we start. But the reality is that it is a marathon, and it's not going to be easy. And we need to train, and we need to practice, and we need to help each other, and we will get tired, and we will need a lot of water. And it is a marathon, and I hope we all can engage in this marathon the way it is, and with all the different values and the different assets that we have in this open air room. And hopefully the next COP, not the 28th, because the next one is in the UAE. I will start with a dream and I will end with another one. Hopefully COP29 will be in Brazil, but in the Amazon. If we're able to come to Sharm el-Sheikh, we should be able to go to the Amazon and make it happen there, in the middle of the forests, so that the whole world understands that saving the Amazon is not about saving the forest, it's about saving humanity, and it's a job of all of us. So we'll be talking about that now with people that have been saying that for many, many years. Professor Carlos Nobre probably tired. He's tired of repeating that to us. He's been repeating and repeating and repeating for, I don't know, 25, 30 years, Professor Carlos. 33 years he's been repeating to us that we need to engage and act now. 33 years later, maybe we are becoming a little bit of a better listeners, and that's what we are trying to do here. We are talking about a marathon that's for all of us. I will ask to go to the next slide. One thing that we are doing at COP26, there was a launch of 2 races, the Race to Zero and the Race to Resilience. The Race to Zero is about carbon. Everybody knows this race. I don't know why not many people talk about the Race to Resilience, but the Race to Resilience, it's about climate justice, it's about helping the people, it's about being fair, it's about being just. So in this case, we are talking about both races together. In this marathon, we want to achieve another dream, Brazil to lead a low-carbon economy from the Amazon to the world. In the next page, I wanted to remember that I would just ask help here because I don't have the slides changer here. So if someone, so I would like to remember this COP is especially important. It's never been so urgent as it is now for us to fight climate change. As you probably have seen today, the negotiations are not going so well. And there is one reason for that. Most of the governments already admit that it's no longer possible for us to achieve the 1.5 degrees Celsius as a limit to increase in temperature. So we do have a big issue to solve, and that's why we need to act now. On the next page, we talk a little bit about one mistake that probably all of us have been making for many, many years. The world is working in an excess matter. We are working in a limit. We are spending more resources than we are able to replace. And we've been doing that for a few years now. And that's why now we have this big issue that even governments want to go back in the agreement because they are afraid that we cannot meet the targets. In the next page, if you see, part of the problem has to do with what we are seeing in the global warming. Part of the problem has to do that with us forgetting the people. We have 4 billion people in vulnerable conditions right now. I mentioned the example of Barbados. We need to look at the people in our countries. In Brazil, for example, we have 28 million people in the Amazon who need care, who need prosperity, so that everything that we are saying here even can make sense for the people there. In the next page, I would like to remember and give more details on the mistakes we are making. In the last decades, we had a few countries who were able to grow and double their GDP in 2 decades. We had China doing that, South Korea, Germany. But the problem of that is that all the countries that did this in an extractive model, taking resources from nature, adding a little bit of technology, investing in education of the population, but extractive model. Brazil made a mistake to try to imitate this model. And in the next page, you will see that we have a chance now to change the course. If we remember that this model does not work for us, we can actually become the first economy in the world to become net zero by 2030, climate positive by 2050. We also can be able to be people-centric and nature-based economy. So we can show that our nature can actually produce prosperity instead of being just depleted as we've been doing until now. And here I have all the numbers. You will see that today our net emissions are 1.1 gigatons. It's important that all of us know these numbers. I promise you, we made this version shorter. It's 45 pages. The original version was 150 pages. It's for all of you to know. We need to know this story. We need to share this story. We need to fight against the reality and build our own common dream. So these numbers are numbers to be known by all of you. Today, we issue around 2.1 gigatons of carbon. The net number is 1.1 because we have the Amazon. The Amazon is a carbon sink. We are a country that has a forest that reduce our emissions that could be much higher if the forest would not be there fighting for us. So this is the number that we have today. In the report, we made a calculation for 2030. quite ambitious one, that we can get 1.3 gigatons extra of reduction in the emissions, and with that we would be net zero, almost in reality net positive, and by 2050 we would be able to reduce 3 gigatons. With that number, we become a nation that's not only climate positive, but we deliver almost 1/3 of the global goal of reductions in emissions in land use systems. That would be an amazing accomplishment that only Brazil can do today. On the next page, we share a little bit of the bad news from the past that we need to change, and I'm talking about this in the past, even though it's still our present, because this is no longer acceptable. What happened to us is that we've not doing as good as the other nations that we've been imitating. We've been doing much worse because we didn't grow, we increased inequality, and we are killing our forests. So our deforestation is increasing quite quickly, growth is not coming, and after the pandemic, if you see in the next page, we went backwards. In hunger, we went back to the hunger map. We are 30 years back. We need to come back at least to present. We need to stop it, and we need to stop it now. It's unacceptable that in a country so rich like Brazil, we have today, as we speak now, more than 30 million people starving, and more than 125 million people with some insecurity to access to food. That means they don't know whether they will eat that day or not. That is unacceptable. And if you see, the economic numbers are not better. For those who say Brazil is doing good, that's not true. Our GDP is not growing, our inflation is growing, our school dropouts and numbers are worse now, so we need to act. Nobody's happy. In the next page, if you see, we have the answer. We are the only nation in the world that has all these resources, clean energy matrix, our huge standing forests. We also have 8 million hectares of degraded land. 8 million. I told the Ministry of Environment from the UK today that we had 80 million hectares of degraded land. He said, what? 80? And I said, yes, 80, because in the beginning he thought was 8, not only because of my accent, because the number just looks too big. It's a lot of land that we need to regenerate. So we don't need to put any other single tree down. We need to plant trees. We need to regenerate our land that's been degraded. In the next page, you will see that we'll talk about the how, and I will not go through the whole presentation with you. We'll give it to you so that you have these numbers with you, this narrative that should be our narrative. So this is the first time that we issue a report with these kinds of numbers, because here we show the following. We could, if we stop now and change the course and work in a nature-based way, focus on climate, people, and also prosperity, we can actually deliver value up to 2030 and add 1% of GDP growth to our economy in Brazil. So this is economic discussion. It's not only an environment discussion. It's not only a people discussion. It's an economic discussion. We create value, and it's not little value. Value of standing forests, additional $20 billion. Sustainable agriculture, additional between 19 and $37 billion. Net zero energy industry, we are showing the value for the industry to decarbonize as well, metals and mining, transportation, so we can create a value between 20 and $40 billion. And technology and bioeconomy, 40 to $53 billion. But there is a challenge here. Not all the sectors will capture the same value. Some sectors will create and capture a lot of value, enough to compensate the investments. Other sectors will not capture as much value, and they do need to invest to decarbonize. And that's where the role of government and social sector is so important. Multilateral organizations, investing with blended finance, de-risking the model. That's why we need to work together. With that all working well, we will also be able, as I said, to reduce the emissions of carbon in 1.3 gigatons, and will give back a protected land between 35 and 50 million hectares of protected land back to our country and to the world. The next page, we will show you how we approach that. You can go to the next page, please. One more. One more. So here we show how this number is so important for us, because we can still meet future demand for meat while reforestating. We can also share the point that I mentioned on degraded land. We don't need more land. I don't eat meat, but anyone who eats meat can eat meat without degrading any other hectare of land. We can do that. There is a space for everyone, as long as we do that with consciousness. Next page, quickly, one more. Here is the first time that in the same report where we talk about nature, we also talk about industry. Our industry needs to decarbonize. Our industry alone issues around half gigatons or 500 million tons of carbon every year. And we can halt this number with a program with the participation of government and multilateral organizations, blended finance, and the private sector, as I mentioned to you. In the next page, you will see one more, that there is also value, and Professor Carlos Nobre has been talking about that for many years as well, on our bioeconomy. Our bioeconomy is so valuable to the world. Today, bioeconomy itself has a value of $1 trillion per year. Superfoods alone, $200 million. But most of this value don't stay in Brazil. For you to know, Brazil nuts, the castanha, our castanha do Pará, is exported today in a very small number. The main exporter of Brazil nuts is Bolivia. You know, so we do have a lot of work to do. We have enormous potential that we are not appreciating now. The next page, very quickly, to remember that this report is a consultation report. We are putting together all these efforts for you, for us to work together. More than 50 organizations work together, and we put together the next phase of it, which is the Amazon's Marathon. And I'll go directly to the slide where we have the Amazon's Marathon. Here is where all the solution is. If we want to make this happen, we need to work around a couple of levers. On the Race to Zero, value our standing forests, work on a sustainable model for agriculture and livestock. We need also quickly to work to decarbonize our industry, especially energy, metals and mining, and transportation. We also need to work to unlock the value of bioeconomy, but we cannot forget the people. And that's why on the right-hand side, or on your left, we have the people side. With everything of this working together and well, we can actually create more jobs. We can create more than 8 million green tech jobs to make all this opportunity become a reality. But for that to happen, we need to help the people who are starving first and work in well-being. We also need to work to bring prosperity and wellness and appreciate and value our ancestral wisdom in our culture. We saw how amazing it was and how privileged we are to have here the Yawanawas singing and giving their blessing to us. Imagine if everyone in the world would have the same opportunity that we are having today. It's more than time for us to appreciate the culture that we have. A couple of months ago, Professor Carlos and I met at the UN headquarters when I had the privilege to open a panel where we had the Yawanawas speaking, and I said, who am I to speak, before my ancestors here? So I just said, I'm sorry for what we've done, because we all are making mistakes, and it's time for us to understand that as well. It is still time, but we need to act now. My grandmother was an indigenous woman. She's not alive. She was married to a miner. My grandfather took the kids away from her, and she died by herself. I don't know where she died. I don't know her ethnicity. And I said last time I mentioned that my grandfather comes from Europe. I don't have an European passport. I have a Brazilian passport. But if I could choose, instead of getting a European passport, I would rather find out the ethnicity of my grandmother. That's my dream. And I still can travel the whole world with my Brazilian passport, and I'm actually very fine and proud of that. And I think we should all be proud of that. And it's more than time for us to remember our ancestors and respect our story. Sometimes I'm stopped. By the way, every immigration, they find kind of weird the Brazilian woman travels so much and have so many stamps in the passport. But it's fine. I'll keep doing that. It's more than time that we need to change that. It's kind of ridiculous that we still have this trouble today. On the next page, just for us to go to the closing remarks and listen to our panelists. You can go to the final page, please. Here I have many projects, and if you see in the report, we tell the story of what the Igarapé Institute is doing with Ilona and Giovanna. We talk about the amazing dream that Professor Carlos has with the Institute of Technology in the middle of the Amazon. And he has this dream he's going to share with you, because Brazil has a story with aeronautics and technology. Nobody knows that this started with a school called ITA, the Institute for Aeronautics and Technology. ITA came before Embraer, was not the other way around. So if we want to unlock the value of bioeconomy, we need to have the best technology of the world in the forest and from the forest to the world. And that's one of the dreams that we have here. Wanda is being one of the main examples of a fighter as well. She was the first indigenous woman to be vaccinated in Brazil in a moment that we were having trouble to get vaccines, and she fought, and she is still fighting for us. She ran for the House of Representatives, and she's going to keep running, and hopefully in this marathon next time she's going to make it there, and she's going to represent us in Congress, but maybe sooner she's going to be in the municipalities also in the Amazon state, because we need her there. We should have many others with us here. I'm just giving these examples. FAST, the Sustainable Amazon Organization Foundation, is also one of our partners. We should have representatives here. The Global Compact is here as well, Pacto Global, another partner of ours. Impact One with Micolage. So at least, as I said, there's more than 50 organizations. And I'm sorry that I spoke too much today for you. But our goal was for you to take this report with you. It's yours. It's a consultation report. We have a long journey ahead of us. And I just wanted to remember to you that we cannot make another mistake this time around, because we don't have more time to waste. One thing happened in the US in the last 3 years, and that's how I want to close this with you. We had some environmentalists who were working very hard, and they created a Green New Deal. What happened was that this Green New Deal was seen as one deal that represented only part of the population. Then they had to take a lot of time to recreate the reports, and they launched it as the Inflation Reduction Act, the Biden Act. Many people don't even know that the Biden Act is about climate, but they had to change it and talk about inflation, about healthcare, because they had to talk to everyone. So my pledge to you is, we cannot talk only about climate. We need to talk about hunger. We need to talk about prosperity. We need to talk about energy and about industry as well. We need to engage everyone. Climate is a fight, but we cannot fight. We need to bring people together with us. We need to dream together. And that's how I end here. Thank you, everyone. We will now listen to our panelists. Thank you. And here's the report for you. So, now that you're sick and tired of listening to me, Professor Carlos is going to share with you a little bit about his dream for technology and the role of the Amazon in bioeconomy. And well, Professor Carlos is also in the science board for the UN. He's been representing Brazil for many years in all these fights on climate. So we cannot think of a better person to talk about that to us and share a little bit of his dreams. And he's asked for help for all of us.
Good evening to all. Thank you very much, Patricia. Buenas noches a todos. Boa noite a todos. I think, you know, it's a big challenge. And let me start by saying, you know, about the marathon. I think really I will tell you a little bit of Brazil's history. So we have really to, I like the symbolic of marathon. But this marathon, in fact, we have to start 200 years ago. And we have to overcome 200 years that Brazil really could be a completely different country. And let me tell you briefly why. Brazil became independent of Portugal from 1500 to 1822. Brazil was a colony. And then Brazil declared independence in September 7th, 1822. And the independence was put together by a group of people, particularly a scientist whose name Brazilians all know. We learned that in all history lessons, classes in the school. José Bonifácio Andrada da Silva. José Bonifácio was a Brazilian scientist born in Santos, father and mother Portuguese, and then he went as a teenager to study in Portugal and became a very well-known scientist, European scientist at that time. We might call it geologist and geographer. So he was there for most of his scientific career, University of Porto, and then he started putting together the movement for Brazil's independence. So a few years before independence, he comes back to Brazil with his brothers, and then they kind of do all the fighting for independence. And then Brazil declared independence, and they convinced the son of the Portuguese king, Pedro I, to declare independence. So Brazil declared independence, and then Pedro I invites José Bonifácio to be the top advisor, let's say equivalent today to a prime minister. And José Bonifácio comes with this, his thought as a scientist, but also as a person who respects a lot the indigenous people, and also totally against slavery. So the first thing José Bonifácio tries to convince Pedro I was immediately stop slavery, trafficking of slavery. In a few years, he stopped completely, abandoned slavery in Brazil. As you know, all American countries were bringing slaves, and Brazil was the last one to abolish slavery, 1888, 89, 88. And also, in addition to abolishing slavery, José Bonifácio wanted to create a number of universities all over Brazil. Brazil had only one university, created in 1808 in Rio. And he wanted to protect all indigenous population. He fully respect indigenous knowledge. And he wanted also Brazil to have several languages, Portuguese and several indigenous languages, to become official languages like Paraguay. Paraguay has indigenous Guarani official language. So I'm just telling you this story because we Brazilians might say, wow, if Brazil followed José Bonifácio, if Pedro I followed José Bonifácio, Brazil would be a fully developed country without deforestation, with all indigenous population, without slavery anymore. But unfortunately, Pedro I followed the agricultural sector of Brazil at that time, which depended totally from slavery. And also at that time, this agricultural system in Brazil was starting to increase tremendously deforestation of the Atlantic rainforest. Not at that time the Amazon, the Atlantic rainforest, coffee, and particularly cattle. Of course, cattle does not exist in the Americas. It came from Europe, all over the Americas. And cattle is the main driver of deforestation. 65% of all deforestation, all global tropical forests is cattle. So the Portuguese brought cattle. Cattle is always, has been, continues to be the main driver of deforestation in all Amazonian countries, all South American countries. So what happened? Pedro I completely abandoned José Bonifácio's advice and kicks off José Bonifácio. José Bonifácio was expelled, was kicked out. He had to go back with family to Portugal in 2023. So it was 1 year as a prime minister. I just want to tell this story because, you know, this project that Patricia presented is really what José Bonifácio wanted to do 200 years ago. Education, science, technology, respecting indigenous people and local communities' knowledge, bringing innovation. So that's the idea of the project that we are proposing for the Amazon, very connected to this project. And so we are developing a project that we call Amazonia 4.0, which is how to really merge it's a nature-based, a science-based knowledge merging with indigenous knowledge and bringing technological innovations for a new economy, a new bioeconomy, as Patricia mentioned here, with many calculations of the economic potential. So this is something that we have to do. This is a big challenge because we do not have any tropical country that reached full development level, except Singapore. But Singapore is a developed country but has nothing to do with biodiversity, with tropical forests. So this is the challenge that all Amazonian countries have, and this is the challenge that Brazil also has, and we are really starting to fight to create this new economy, particularly respecting the indigenous people, knowledge, rights. And so basically, I will be very brief now, just to say, in this Amazonia 4.0 project, we have 3 components. We are constructing, we call innovation labs, innovation hubs, for adding value to products of the forest, starting with cocoa and cupuaçu. Cupuaçu is a very close relative to cocoa. You make a beautiful, good tasting chocolate, and also Brazil nuts, acai berry, fine cooking oils, genomic resources, the tremendous potential, the place on earth with the largest biodiversity. So in this century, genome sequencing has a very high economic value. I think, you know, you should also calculate, it's not in your calculations, but genomic value is tremendous. This trillions and trillions of dollars. This is the economic potential of genomes. So this is all we are starting to develop, these laboratories, to bring to the Amazon. And the second component is Amazonia Rainforest Business School. We are constructing a business school for this new economy that Patricia mentioned. And the third component we are starting to develop is the Amazonia Institute of Technology. We want to create a pan-Amazonia, not only in Brazil, in all Amazonian countries. It's a, let's say, MIT-like. I did my PhD at MIT, so I know what a high-level technology institute can do. So this will be an institute created in all of the Amazonia with many research centers, very high-level research centers, but also in this Institute of Technology, Amazon Institute of Technology, we wanted to attract the indigenous people. We want to be the space for merging science, scientific and indigenous knowledge, local communities knowledge with technological innovations. So we hope to be launching this project into 2023, and then we hope to have approval by governments, particularly the new government in Brazil and the government in Colombia. Certainly, they already are very excited about these ideas, and we want the private sector to come to join in from day zero, and also we want the financial world also to support us to develop. So this is a big challenge. I want to say this is a big challenge. No tropical country has an Institute of Technology. It's high level. So we wanted to construct this Institute of Technology in the Amazon, all over the Amazon, and I hope this will make the new generation of people for this new bioeconomy for the Amazon. So I just want also to tell you, to invite all of you, anybody interested in knowing more and supporting, we are open to receive any collaboration to develop this Amazonia 4.0 project, particularly the creation of this Institute of Technology, which will give us the tools to construct this very sustainable bioeconomy, and we say a bioeconomy of standing forests and flowing rivers. So this is the message I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you. We need to close the panel soon, so I'll ask Giovanna and Wanda to be quick. We started a little bit later, and we have another panel afterwards. And I would like to say good evening to our Secretary Marta to be here. It's an honor to have you together with us. Thank you very much for being here. She's the Secretary for International Relations in the city of São Paulo. She came all the way to COP representing the city. It's an honor to have you here with us and representing the city at COP as well. Thank you. Giovanna, rule of law is one of the main problems that we had. We talked to many investors, and everybody says that they don't feel safe to invest in Brazil, especially in the Amazon. If you see the Nature magazine 2 weeks ago, they showed that one of our main issues is the increase of illegal activities in the Amazon, mining, traffic, drug dealing, everything's getting really bad, and rule of law, reestablishing rule of law, is one of the key solutions for this problem. We know Igarapé is a reference on that. You're representing Igarapé, Ilona, and yourself here. Could you, in 2 minutes, tell us, a message on that, and how can we engage and help to reestablish rule of law in the Amazon?
Sure, thank you, Patricia. It's an honor to be here and to be part of this report. So let me talk to you about the 3 pillars we work and what we are proposing in this report. So we work in 3 pillars. Our program in the Amazon Basin, it's about understanding the ecosystem of environmental crime, strengthening governance and partnerships, and enabling sustainable development solutions. So in our first pillar, we are working to shed light on the scope, scale, and dynamics of the ecosystem of environmental crime. And from that, we have 4 main conclusions so far from our studies. First is that economic activities, they drive deforestation. Second is that there are 4 major types of illicit economic activities taking place in the Amazon that are boosting illegal deforestation. They are land grabbing, illegal logging, illegal mining, and agricultural and livestock farming rifle with environmental illegalities. Third, these activities, they generate and rely on an ecosystem of environmental and non-environmental converging offenses. And finally, and very important, while the damage and destruction are concentrated in the region, the extension and capillarity of the ecosystem of environmental crime, they go much beyond the Amazon. Other actors and localities outside the region are also involved in these illicit chains. Just to give you an example, from our most recent study of mapping of the federal police, 24 of the 27 Brazilian states are part of this ecosystem. So taken together, this ecosystem of environmental crime not only increases the vulnerability of local populations for illegalities, but also drives away the necessary responsible investment capital for the region. So to stop illegal deforestation in this ecosystem, we need to enforce the rule of law. So this is a priority of our work with the public sector by strengthening governance and partnerships, which brings me to our second pillar of work. So let me share one way we are doing this. We have identified the gaps and ways to strengthen institutional capacities of the federal, state, and municipal levels through the implementation of a multidimensional security agenda for the Amazon. So we have three main sets of proposals, and they range from structural and governance issues to actions related to the reduction of the ecosystem of environmental crime and illegalities to tackle violent crimes. And this is key to ensure command and control to enable the sustainable development solutions and ultimately a green ecosystem. So this brings me to our third pillar. So if we want to improve the rule of law to build this green ecosystem, we also need the private sector. Investing in command and control is not enough, although an important part of the equation. So to ensure real improvements, we need to scale up solutions for sustainable development. To this end, we are working to increase transparency and traceability of supply chains, to improve ESG metrics and rankings, what we call the ESG AAA, and to develop informed risk analysis. So this means that alongside the public sector, the private sector and financial institutions are critical to deliver on reductions in environmental crime. The challenge here is that many of the today's instruments and metrics, they do not capture the real damage at the local level, at the territory. So to fill this gap, we are and support entrepreneurs and investors to create the conditions for green economy ecosystem to emerge. We are working on cutting-edge research and new tools, such as the Amazon Sustainability Dashboard, which will be launching at Biodiversity COP15 in Montreal in December. So on one hand, if governments can and need to improve command and control, entrepreneurs and investors must ensure they are not contributing to the illegalities, and our work aims supporting both fronts. So to accelerate a responsible green ecosystem, it is key that civil society, private sector, local communities, and governments work together to create the positive change we need. And to promote this initial ecosystem of green economies, as well as to finance the implementation of a multidimensional agenda for the Amazon to strengthen command and control capacities, we are proposing in this report what we call a green economy bridge facility, having as pilot one large state in the legal Amazon. So this facility will be led by a coalition of civil society organizations in partnership with governments, entrepreneurs, and investors. And this facility includes a funding mechanism to support local governments so they can strengthen governance and the rule of law, a blended venture philanthropic fund for the creation of innovative business models compatible with a standing forest, support for climate tech and green economy research, and support for environmental defenders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Giovanna. This is a very important plan, and it's the first time that we have a plan at this scale in one state. So they have it in the report, and the idea is to replicate to other states in the legal Amazon. So we have 9 states in the legal Amazon. We can have the federal government working, but states have a lot of power to make it happen. Flávia Bellaguarda, who is here, is representing, we have a legal Amazon pavilion at COP. This year, by the way, we have 3 Brazilian pavilions. We have the federal government pavilion, the legal Amazon pavilion with the governors, and the Brazil Climate Action Hub for the social sector and the multilateral organizations, the civil society. So please engage in the discussions on those 3 pavilions. And to close it now, we have Wanda Witoto with the very important job to represent the people in our report. You will see that we have many projects. I would like to highlight that we have many of them with the indigenous communities. Impact One is one of the key partners. We also have Institute ALOC and the FAST, the Foundation for Sustainable Amazon, and many others. But it's a very important piece. We cannot make the economy work and climate change become a solution without solutions for the people in the Amazon. So Wanda, thank you very much. Wanda is becoming not only a leader that I admire, but also a friend. This night, we spent the whole night awake because we walked all the way to Mount Sinai. I recommend you to do that. It's a beautiful walk. Not very easy, though, but was a privilege to me to walk side by side and learn more about your story. Thanks a lot.
Boa noite a todos.
Good night, everyone.
Boa noite a todos
Good night,
e
everyone.
todas.
And all.
Saldo primeiro meus parentes que estão
First, I wanna
presentes.
say thank you, everyone, for being here, and my people especially.
E dizer
And I want to say
que esta bandeira
that this flag
não é de um governo
is
fascista,
not from a fascist government,
mas é dos nossos
but it's
povos
from
que
our
vivem no
people
Brasil.
that live in Brazil.
Saldo a Madre Terra
I'd like to say
por
Mother
nos
Earth,
permitir
thank you
chegar aqui
that we arrived
com as
here
nossas vozes,
with our voices,
com nosso coração,
with our heart,
com nossos espíritos da
with
floresta,
our spirits from the forest,
para trazer uma mensagem para
to
vocês.
bring a message to you all.
Eu sou Wanda Ortega, sou uma mulher indígena,
I'm an indigenous woman,
pertencente ao povo Witoto do Brasil.
and I'm from the Witoto people from Brazil.
O meu povo é considerado o
My-
povo do centro da terra.
My people is known as the people from the center of the earth.
O meu povo é
My
considerado
people is known
filho de
as the
tabaco,
son of tobacco,
semente da coca
seed
e
of
de yuca
coke,
doce.
and yucca and sweet yucca.
Temos
We
o rosto
have
forte como a
a
coca,
very strong face like the coke,
mas o coração doce.
but our hearts
Como a
are
yucca.
sweet like yucca.
Venho da maior floresta
I
tropical
come
do
from
mundo,
the biggest forest of the world
que ainda está de pé.
that is still standing.
Também venho
I also come
da
from
maior bacia
the
hidrográfica do
biggest
planeta,
hydrographic basin of
o
the
grande
world,
rio
the
Amazonas,
big Amazonas River,
o meu Solimões.
my Solimões.
Trago em minha voz
I bring in
e em
my
meu
voice
corpo
and in my body
a luta daqueles
the fight of those
que, em meio à
that
imensidão
in
da
the
floresta
middle
e
of
dos
the
rios,
vast forest and the rivers,
seus gritos
I can hear
não
their
conseguem
screams,
ecoar
and they are
como o
not
som da
echoing
sapupema
like the sound of
e o tambor de
Sapupema
Manguare.
and the drums of Muguari.
Trago a voz
I
daqueles
bring the voice of
que, em meio à
those that in the
floresta
middle of
e
the
às margens dos
forest
rios,
and by the rivers,
onde o único
where
som que ecoa por hora
the only sound that they can
são
hear
os
now
estrondosos barulhos dos
are the
motosserra
sounds of the
rasgando a
motors.
floresta adentro.
They are doing the deforestation in the Amazon.
Venho de um lugar
I come from a
onde o
place
cheiro de fumaça
where the smell of the smoke
e a escuridão
and
cobre os
the
olhos dos
darkness
governantes
is really covering the eyes of all
diante
the
das
leaders
queimadas
and
e
that they
derrubadas
cannot
das
see the
nossas árvores,
deforestation of our trees,
onde os pássaros
where birds
pousavam
used
para
to
se alimentar.
land to eat.
Trago a voz
Now I
daqueles
bring the voice of
que, diante
those
da imensidão do rio,
that when they saw the
hoje
immensity of the river,
tomam
now
água e
they
se
drink
alimentam
water and
dos
they
peixes
eat the
carregados
food
por mercúrio
of
que estão
fish with
contaminados
mercury. They are
pela
contained
mineração
by
ilegal
the illegal
potencializada no atual
that is
governo dentro
super
dos nossos
potential by the
territórios.
current government in our territories.
Trago a voz das
I
crianças
bring the voice of the
Yanomamis
kids Yanomami
estupradas até a morte
that
por
were
garimpeiros
raped
que devastam o
by
corpo da Mãe
miners
Terra
that
e das
devastate the
mulheres e
body of the
crianças
forest and
indígenas
the
no
women
Brasil.
and the kids in Brazil.
Trago também
I also bring
as vozes das
the
crianças
voices
ribeirinhas,
of kids
quilombolas,
from the river,
negras,
from quilombolas,
indígenas,
black indigenous,
que não fazem
that
as
are
3
not-
refeições
that
por
are not
dia,
having the 3 meals that they
porque
should be
nosso
having,
país
because
voltou
our people,
à
because our
linha da
country
pobreza
went
e à
back to the
fome
line of
com mais
poverty
de
and
33
famine
milhões de
with more than
pessoas.
33 million people in famine.
Trago as
I
vozes
bring the
dos
voices
nossos anciões
of
e
our
anciãs
ancestors
que há milhares de anos
that thousands
têm
of years
alertado o
ago
mundo a
have
partir
really
dos seus
shown the
conhecimentos
world by
ancestrais
their ancestral
e a partir de uma
knowledge
relação profunda
and
de
based on the
observação
relationship and observation
vivenciada com a
They
natureza,
managed to live with nature.
os espíritos da
The
floresta,
spirits of the forest,
os espíritos dos rios,
the spirits of the rivers,
os espíritos dos
the
animais,
spirits of the animals.
e a partir da escuta sensível da
And
terra
starting with that listening, the
e dos
sensitive
cantos dos
listening of the
pássaros,
forest and listening to the birds,
que alertam da
that
tragédia
really
das ações
have
humanas
shown how human action
que há muito tempo
should
se
be long
pratica
ago
em detrimento de um capital
have been working for
que tem
capital,
causado a destruição
and that is now
do
causing
nosso
destruction
ecossistema,
of our ecosystem,
da sociedade
of our societies,
e do nosso planeta.
and our planet.
Nós, povos indígenas,
We, indigenous
população
people,
negra, ribeirinha,
black
quilombolas,
people, people from the
periféricas,
rivers, peripheric people,
vivenciamos
black people, we live
o
daily
racismo
the
ambiental
environmental racism
imposto pelo Estado
that's been done
e
by the
pelas grandes
state and by
corporações,
the big corporations,
porque somos nós,
because it's
mulheres,
us, women,
periféricas, mulheres
peripheric
indígenas,
women, indigenous
negras
women,
e quilombolas,
black women and
que
quilombola
sofremos
women,
primeiramente os
suffering
impactos ambientais.
firsthand the environmental impacts.
E queremos pedir
And now we want to
aos
ask
governantes
that all of the,
e às
the
grandes
leaders
corporações
and all the big corporations
parem
stop,
de olhar para a Amazônia
stop looking at the Amazon
somente com um olhar
only
de satélite.
with a satellite eye.
Parem de ver somente as
Stop
árvores
looking at us only through
e a beleza
forests
dos nossos rios.
and the beauty of our rivers.
Os governantes e o mundo não
The
conseguem
governments
olhar
and
a
the leaders
vida das
cannot really
pessoas
see the people who live there
que têm sido impactadas nesta
and who are
Amazônia.
being impacted in this Amazon.
Nós precisamos
We
primeiro
need, in first
cuidar das
place,
pessoas.
to take care of the people.
As pessoas são mais
The
importantes
people matter and they are more important.
porque são elas que
Because it's
cuidam
the
da
people who
floresta.
take care of the forest.
Porque são
Because
elas
it's the
que
people
cuidam e protegem
who
nossos rios.
protect the rivers.
Para nós, povos indígenas,
For us indigenous people,
essa defesa
it's this
tem se dado
defense
a
that
partir
has
da
been
nossa
done
morte, porque
by our
muitos
own
dos
death,
nossos
because
tombaram
many of us
defendendo a Amazônia,
had to die in
defendendo
order
a
to
nossa
protect
floresta
and
e
defend
nossos
the
rios.
Amazon and our rivers.
Nós
We
precisamos da
need
condição de vida
to
digna
have
para as pessoas
a
da
necessary
Amazônia,
condition to live, like a basic,
porque elas têm cuidado desse planeta para
because
vocês
they
respirarem.
have been taking care of this planet so you could
Mas
breathe.
na pandemia,
And
o
during the
nosso
pandemic,
estado
our
faltou
state,
oxigênio
we had no oxygen
e as
during
pessoas
the
morreram
COVID-19
asfixiadas
pandemic, and people
sem
died
atendimento
with no
médico.
oxygen, without the real treatment that they
Os
deserve.
povos indígenas
And the
foram
indigenous
enterrados
peoples
na
were
cidade
buried
sem
in
ser
the city
reconhecido como os
without
povos
being recognized
indígenas.
as the indigenous people that they are.
Os governantes não nos
The
reconhecem
government
nos
don't
espaços
recognizes
urbanos.
us in the urban
Não temos
spaces.
acesso à água
We don't have
potável,
access to
não temos
potable
acesso à
water,
educação,
we don't have access
não
to
temos
education,
acesso
we
à
don't
saúde.
have access to health.
Ainda há uma grande
still
invisibilidade
There is
desse
a,
corpo,
my body
dessas vozes.
and our voices still need to be recognized.
Queremos reflorestar sim a
We
Amazônia,
want to do
porque
a
está
reforestation in
devastada,
the Amazon because
porque
it is
está derrubada.
devastated, because it is
Mas
not
precisamos,
standing,
sobretudo,
but we need above all
reflorestar
else,
nossos corações e nossas
reforest our
mentes.
hearts and our minds.
Precisamos nos
We need to
reconectar com a nossa
reconnect
mãe terra
ourselves with our mother
e a
nature
floresta,
and the forest.
porque o capitalismo nos
Because the
separou dela
capitalism has
e
divided
nos
us
colocou
from it,
superior a
and
ela,
has
por isso
put
que
us
destruímos
as
ela.
if we were more prosperous than it, as if we were the priority, but we are not.
Para a perspectiva de futuro,
But for a perspective
precisamos
of
nos
future,
conectar com nossas
we
ancestralidades
need
do
to
passado,
connect with
com a
our
nossa memória do
ancestrality,
nosso passado,
with our
sobretudo
memory from
nós
the
brasileiros,
above all else,
que
us
nos envergonhamos
Brazilians,
das nossas ancestralidades
that we are
indígenas e
so
negras.
ashamed of our background as
Precisamos
indigenous and black
retomar
people.
a nossa
We
conexão
need to take this
com a
connection
floresta,
back
porque
with the
somos
forest,
ela,
because we
pertencemos
are the
ela,
forest.
viemos dela.
We came from
E
it.
se não
and we
cuidarmos,
belong to it.
nossa perspectiva de
And
vida
if-
está extremamente
and our
limitada.
perspective of life is extremely limited if we
E o
don't think
chamado
about
dessa
it.
terra,
And then the
se
calling
vocês
of the
ouvirem
earth,
a voz dos povos
if you
indígenas,
listen to the
vocês
voices
estarão
of the indigenous
atendendo um chamado da terra,
If you
da
listen to the
floresta.
indigenous people, you will be attending also a calling
porque
from Mother Earth
eu
and from
sou
the
do
forest.
centro da terra.
Because I come from the center
Eu
of the
sou do
earth.
meio da floresta.
I come from the center of the forest.
Hairi de Kwená. Hairi de Kwená. Obrigada a todos.
Thank you all.
Thank you so, so much. This is, I mean, the last words. So thank you very much for the panel. Big round of applause, and I will now introduce the next panel. But I would like to quote. I would like to quote. There will be a photo. So I like to quote Wanda Vitoto. She said a very important sentence. She said, if we will listen to the indigenous voices, we will hear the calling of Mother Earth. I think in this sentence, it's like a mantra. It's more wisdom than in many sentences spoken at COP. And this is exactly how I want to introduce Nina Gualinga from the Quechua people of Sarayaku. Big round of applause for Nina. So we are blessed to have you here. When Nina was invited by Jeanne de Cron to our first meeting, to our first panel, she was actually sitting with us at the Biennale di Architettura in Venice, and she was speaking on a very big panel with all the artists and architects that contributed to the Biennale and scientists. And she was actually speaking, you were speaking after one of the scientists that formed our thinking most, the botanist Stefano Mancuso. And Stefano Mancuso was explaining in a very clear scientific language, a little bit like the Amazon report, why we need trees, why we need to plant now 1,000 billion trees, so 1 trillion additional trees to the 3 trillion that are left, because that would compensate for our footprint on this planet. And then Nina spoke. And while everybody understood the words of Stefano Mancuso, only when she spoke, everybody could feel the meaning behind these words. And only after I understood where this comes from, and it comes from the living forest. And I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so grateful that you're here. And I'm so happy that you not only will now present the living forest, but after you will present the panel of indigenous youth leaders that you have created for us. Thank you so much, and big round of applause for you. It's a listening panel, so we will listen.
Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone coming here to listen. We've been having many conversations between friends and allies about the importance of listening to each other and listening to indigenous voices. And we just heard a very powerful indigenous woman speak her voice here, and I was very touched. Thank you. Muchas gracias. So I'm going to take you to the upper Amazon, where the Amazon basin is born. That's where I'm from. We didn't create the borders of the countries like Brazil, Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela. The Amazon is one, and the biomes and the other ecosystems around it are one, because the Amazon is not divided. The Amazon is not apart from the other ecosystems and biomes. It was the colonizers that created the borders of the different countries, because they didn't understand our indigenous systems. They don't know the land. They don't know the territory. They don't know the beings that live in the forest. They don't know the beings that live in the water or in the mountains or the waterfalls and the lagoons. They don't know them, and they don't see them. So the Amazon is my home, like it is for many other people that are here. And that is where I was born and where I grew up. And growing up as a little girl, I knew very little about the different extractive activities and industries, or about climate change, because I had yet not been impacted by it. Until an oil company came to my community, Sarayaku, in search for oil. But my people are warriors, and some of them are actually here, and I hope that you will get a chance to meet them afterwards. So we fought back as a community. We organized. Elders, youth, children, women, men, everyone had an important role. And we kicked them out. We kicked out the oil company. We kicked out the military that the government had sent to support and protect the oil company workers. And we took the Ecuadorian government to international court, and we won. And we set a precedent. We set an international precedent in Latin America about the right to free, prior, informed consultation. But it shouldn't just be consultation. It should be about consent. Because those territories are our homes, and those are the territories where our future generations will live in and thrive, hopefully. However, this doesn't mean that the threat is over. Across the Amazon, governments and corporations are expanding oil frontiers, mining frontiers. Oil is being pumped out by the day. Trees are being cut down, roads are being built, they're taking out the minerals. And all of this is happening with violence. Our rivers are being polluted. Our soils is being destroyed. And the lives of those who live there and call this place home are being destroyed too. Entire peoples and communities have been wiped out and killed by something that probably many of the people and the representatives that are here at COP would call development, progress, business maybe. But indigenous peoples are fighting back. And as our sister here was saying, they are risking their lives to protect these territories. Many of them have been attacked, threatened, raped, murdered. My friends, my family, some of them are here, and you will hear from them during the panel. It doesn't end there, though, because now we're seeing the consequences of climate change. Extreme flooding, extreme heat, unpredictable weather patterns that make it difficult for our farming in our communities. It's not like it was before. It's not like our elders knew it when they were growing, planting, sowing. And unfortunately, the economic and governance model that we are talking about at the COP, the approach of governments, is not addressing the real problem, and it's not creating solutions. The way that people in power, the way that people with resources are approaching this matter through carbon trading, net zero targets, business as usual, is not going to get us out of this crisis. And as indigenous peoples and communities, we are tired of the talking, because we have been talking and sharing our experiences, our knowledge for so many years now that we're losing our breath. We need action. And communities across the Amazon and beyond are proposing solutions, are creating solutions on the ground. They're living them, they're experiencing them. It is time to listen to indigenous peoples. It is time to support the initiatives that exist. The only way to seize climate change is through listening to indigenous peoples. It is through protecting our homes, keeping fossil fuels in the ground, and to learn from the relationship that indigenous peoples have with the land. In my community, the Quechua people of Sarayaku, we have a loving relationship with the land, with our surrounding. We have a different understanding of development than what is being discussed at the COP. We don't even have a word for nature, because we are nature. And we call the Amazon Kausaksacha, the living forest. It is a living territory with living beings, stones, trees, the animals, the smallest creatures, the waterfalls, the mountains. They're all living beings that we have relationships with, that we interact with. And they deserve the right to live too. The protective beings, or if you want to call them the spirits of the forest, they have a right to exist too. And it is thanks to that relationship that we as indigenous peoples maintain with them that we have been able to coexist peacefully and in harmony with all the living beings around us. That relationship needs to be protected. Their lives, their existence needs to be recognized and protected as well. We have different value systems and understanding what development means, what well-being means. In my community, it means fertile soil, it means clean water, fresh air, and it means the solidarity of our people. These territories need to be safeguarded. The living territories that I'm talking about need to be safeguarded by the people that interact with it, the indigenous peoples. And how do we do that? We protect indigenous rights and we protect indigenous land. Indigenous people's rights to land needs to first be recognized, acknowledged, and respected. we also need to recognize the rights of all living beings. Just like we have human rights, there needs to be rights, legal protection for all other living creatures. And the proposal of my community is about recognizing that. A legal framework to protect all lives, a legal framework to protect living territories, to protect the living forest, to protect Kausaksacha. And I invite everyone here to support that. And I invite everyone here to review their relationship with the land, their relationship with indigenous peoples. And sometimes supporting means stepping back, creating space, and also to recognize that other people might have solutions to the crisis that we are facing today, and to support those solutions. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening and for creating this space. As I was saying, we have been talking a lot about listening to indigenous voices, indigenous solutions, and indigenous peoples. And as I was also saying, the Amazon is not divided, and the ecosystems around it are not divided. It's all connected, right? So I wanted to create as much space as possible for different voices to be able to share here. And I have, we're gonna have a youth panel about solutions on the ground and how the youth in their communities are approaching solutions. However, before that panel, I want to invite someone, a very powerful woman, to come here and share her voice as well, and share about her work and share about her vision as an indigenous woman. Welcome, Shirley.
Boa noite.
Good night.
Erehenhawit, na língua do meu povo, Krenak.
Erehenhawit in the language of my people, the Krenak people.
Vamos ficar de pé para responder Erehé em saudação à lua que nos honra nesse momento.
Let's stand up, please, to say Erehe, and in the name of the moon that is blessing us tonight.
Geralmente, quando uma liderança está falando sobre espiritualidade, educação e juventude,
Normally, when someone in leadership is talking about education, youth,
a gente honra com sabedoria ficando de pé.
we honor them by standing up.
Até porque nós, povos indígenas, ficamos de pé 24 horas por dia para vocês respirarem.
Because we, indigenous people, we are standing 24 hours a day for you to breathe.
Meu nome é Shirley de Curnan Krenak.
My name is Shirley Jukurnan Krenak.
Jukurnã significa um espírito que não envelhece.
Jukurnan it means the spirit that doesn't get old.
E eu sou do povo Krenak do leste de Minas Gerais.
I am from the Krenak people in the east side of Minas Gerais.
Kren significa cabeça, Nak significa terra.
Kren means head, Nak means soil, earth.
E meu povo luta mais de 200 anos contra a mineração.
And my people fight for more than 200 years against mining.
E eu sou do bioma da Mata Atlântica.
And I'm from the biome of the Atlantic forest.
E no Brasil existem 7 biomas.
And in
6
Brazil,
biomas.
there are
6 biomas.
6 biomes.
Mata Atlântica,
Atlantic forest,
Pampa,
Pampa,
Pantanal,
Pantanal,
Cerrado,
Cerrado,
Caatinga
Caatinga,
e Amazônia.
and the Amazon.
À medida que nós trabalhamos o processo educacional dentro dos espaços de comunicação,
The more we work with the educational process within the spaces of communication,
e nós focamos em um único só bioma,
and we focus only in one biome,
isso mostra que o mundo ainda continua individualista.
it shows that the world continues and remains individualist.
Então, de que forma sonhar
How can you dream
se você pensa no individualismo?
if you think and you dream about one of the individual?
Vocês jogam toda a responsabilidade do ativismo de proteção ambiental em cima da nossa irmã Amazônia.
You put all the responsibility of the environment and activism only in one sister in the Amazon.
Mas e os outros biomas?
And what about the other biomes?
Vocês protegem um porque os outros podem matar tudo,
You
pode
protect
arrebentar com
one
tudo.
because you can kill all the others, you can destroy everything else.
Então, que política ambiental é essa?
What is this environmental policy that we're talking about?
Que tipo de ser humano é você que pensa de forma individualista?
What kind of human being are you that's thinking in an individual way?
Porque à medida que você fala só de um bioma,
Because the more you talk about one biome,
vocês me matam mesmo estando viva.
you kill me while I remain alive.
A Mata Atlântica dela existem 5% da originalidade dela.
Of the Atlantic forest, only remains 5% of the original cover.
E é esse 5% que está falando aqui.
And this is the 5% that is standing here in front of you.
Então, meu bioma não está morto.
My biome's not dead,
Então, parem de me matar,
so don't kill me,
porque eu estou viva.
because I am alive.
E dentro do processo da educação e da juventude,
And through education and through young people,
eu honro tudo o que os jovens estão fazendo.
I honor everything that young people are doing,
Porque eles estão ecoando sabedoria ancestral de base.
because they are echoing the knowledge ancestral from the ground, grassroots knowledge.
E isso é educação.
And this is education,
Educação global.
global education,
Porque não existe o global dentro da COP.
because there's no global inside COP.
Existe o global dentro da boca dos jovens, que vem de dentro da comunidade, que são ensinados por nós.
The global comes from within the young people that live in our communities that are taught by us.
E isso que eles estão produzindo, fazendo 24 horas por dia,
And this is what they're producing 24 hours a day,
é a verdadeira COP.
is the true COP.
Meu povo luta mais de 200 anos contra a mineração.
My people fight for over 200 years against mining.
E quando eu cheguei aqui,
When
cheguei
I
dia
arrived here,
7.
I
Vou
arrived
quebrar
on
o
the
protocolo
7th.
de 5 minutos, vocês
I'm
me dão
gonna
licença.
break the
Até porque eu sou
protocol of
mais
5
velha
minutes.
dos jovens e eu posso fazer isso.
I'm the elderly here and I can talk about it.
É porque o povo não indígena é acostumado de determinar tempo pra gente.
Because people who are not indigenous, they are always looking at the clock and saying, oh, you have only few minutes.
Mas somos nós que temos de determinar o tempo para vocês.
But we determine the time for you.
Há mais de 200 anos, meu povo luta contra a mineração.
For more than 200 years, my people fight against mining
No estado de Minas Gerais.
in the state of Minas Gerais,
Leste de Minas.
East Minas Gerais.
E em 13 de maio de 1808,
In 13th of May of
só uma pequena aula de educação
1888,
aqui. Dom João VI declarou guerra justa ao meu povo.
Don John VI declared the just war against my people.
Guerra justa ao povo botocudo.
Just war, the fair war against my people.
Botocudo é um nome pejorativo e eu detesto.
Botocudo was how they called my people, and I hate. It's a pejorative kind of addressing my people.
Eu gosto de ser chamada de Borum.
I like to be called Borum.
Repitam comigo.
Repeat with me.
Borum. Borum. Borum significa a essência do ser humano.
Borum means the essence of the human being.
E nós fomos o único povo que conseguimos processar a Companhia Vale de Mineração.
And we were the only people that managed to sue the Vale do Rio Doce, the mining company.
E nas 3 instâncias jurídicas nós conseguimos provar que o rio tem espiritualidade.
And in the free litigation process that we went through, we managed to prove that the river has spirit.
E como se não bastasse o crime de Mariana,
And the crime of Mariana that happened in our land,
teve o crime de Brumadinho,
there was also the crime of Brumadinho
matando mais de 200 pessoas.
that killed more than 200 people.
Mas e aí?
But then,
Todo mundo só fala de um único bioma.
everyone's talking about one biome.
Então, já que vocês estão aqui trazendo muitos dados,
So as you're here bringing lots of data and information,
uma inteligência política voltada para a questão ambiental,
a political intelligence for for environmental policy,
por favor,
please
comecem a trabalhar a sua nascente,
please start working the beaming of your river,
a nascente que nasce dentro de você.
the river that is born within you.
E se eu perguntar onde nasce a tua nascente,
And if I ask you where your river is born,
todo mundo, muitas das pessoas respondem, é meu coração.
lots of people say it's my heart.
Uau!
Now,
A nascente, a sua nascente,
your river starts.
assim como eu aprendi com os meus pais, os meus anciões,
That's what I learned from the elderly, from my
sua
ancestors.
nascente nasce aqui, ó.
Your river is born here.
Porque essa nascente, ela alimenta o seu rio que
Be-
desce,
Because your river goes down.
alimenta a sua visão,
It feeds your eyes, your vision,
alimenta a sua fala
your speech, your mouth,
e alimenta a sua terra,
and feeds your earth, your soil.
que é o teu coração.
That is your heart.
E à medida que essa nascente seca,
And when this river gets dry,
você se torna um ser humano individualista
you become a very selfish human being.
e só pensa em você
And you only think about yourself.
e não pensa no
And
coletivo.
you don't think about the collective.
E aí acontecem essas desgraças ambientais
And that's what happens when we see, these disasters, environmental disasters.
e as pessoas não entendem o porquê.
And people don't understand why.
Então, ser humano, o porquê é que a sua nascente está ficando seca.
So why human beings? Because your river is getting dry.
Eu honro toda a juventude
I honor all the youth
que fala por mim.
that speaks through me.
Eu honro todas as mulheres do meu país.
I honor all the women in my country.
Eu honro todas as mulheres do mundo inteiro.
I honor all the women in the whole world.
Porque o chamado da terra foi feito para nós, mulheres.
Because the call of the earth was made for us women.
E à medida que o machismo cresce e tenta tapar a nossa boca,
And the more the sexism grows and tries to not let us talk,
a terra também fica silenciada e sofre também.
the earth also gets silenced and suffers.
Até porque a humanidade
Because humanity
veio do útero de uma mulher.
was born in the belly of one woman.
E nós merecemos respeito.
And we deserve respect.
Eu, Shirley Krenak, represento a articulação da AMIGA, a Articulação Nacional das Mulheres Guerreiras da Ancestralidade.
So I, Shirley Krenak, represent, and I'm here on the behalf of UNMIGA, the national articulation of the women of the ancestrality in Brazil.
E eu espero,
Warriors.
do fundo do meu coração,
And I hope, from the bottom of my heart,
que todos os países do mundo e os meios de comunicação
that all the countries in the world and the media vehicles
comecem a refazer
start to remake
o seu processo de fala,
their process of
o
speech,
seu processo de escrita
the process of writing,
e o seu processo político de pensamento global.
and the way of thinking globally and politically.
E a partir de hoje,
And from today,
falem de todos os biomas,
talk about every biome.
porque em todos os biomas existem povos indígenas.
Because in every biome there are indigenous people.
E nós merecemos respeito.
And we deserve respect.
Em nome do povo Krenak
So in the name of
e
Krenak
de
people
todos os povos do Brasil,
and all of the indigenous people of Brazil,
muito obrigada.
thank you very much.
Era ré.
Thank you so much. Muito obrigado. Wow. That was very powerful. Okay, so we're going to continue with a youth panel. It's a listening session, and I know we're a bit over time. But as we were saying about the importance of listening to indigenous people, so let's honor that. And I am, could someone maybe help me like put up the chairs? Yeah. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, it's fine. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Just no. This one we have to leave. Yeah.
We extended by 1 hour.
Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. Great. Thank you. That's perfect. Okay, so I want to call on the speakers for this panel. Leo Cerda. Donde quieras. Leo Cerda is Quechua from Ecuador, and they will present themselves more in detail in a little bit. Iskukua, please, from the Yawanawa in Brazil. Maria Jose Andrade, also Quechua from Ecuador. Taili Terena from the Terena people in Brazil. And Alexis Grefa from Ecuador as well. Ah, ya, sí hay que pasar, ¿no? So we're going to have about 15 minutes of a listening session, and then, yeah, well, we're going to have maybe 10, 15 minutes of questions or reflections from all of you. And, well, the reason that we created this listening session is because as our communities and territories are being attacked by extractive industries, indigenous youth are stepping up in leadership and creating solutions and resistance in their own communities. And every community, every territory has its own reality and different threats, different approaches. And you know, they're demanding land back, they're demanding rights, they are creating solutions. So basically, I wanted you all to have the opportunity to listen directly from the people that are on the front lines, the people that are on the ground, that are creating solutions on the ground, and that also some of them, and especially those who are back home, are under attack and are under risk and have received threats. So I also just ask everyone to be mindful of that these are real stories, these are real experiences, and it might seem like very far away for some of you, but these are lived experiences. So just to be mindful of that. I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves and to share about where they come from, to share about what they are doing, what solutions they are proposing, and how people like you here and allies and friends can support their solutions and their initiatives. So I would like to start with Isku. If you could start sharing who you are, where you come from, and the initiatives that you are creating in your territory.
Boa noite,
Good
todo
evening.
mundo. Uma honra poder estar aqui fazendo parte aqui, né, desse painel com essas jovens lideranças assim como eu, trazendo a voz da ancestralidade e da história dos nossos povos.
It's an honor for me to be a part of this panel here with other young leaders such as myself, bringing the voice of our ancestry and our communities.
Eu me chamo Skunkuá, sou do povo Yawanawá, da Amazônia Acreana, Sou liderança de uma comunidade chamada Aldeia Nova Esperança.
My name is Iskunkuá. I am a leader of the Yawanawa people in the Brazilian Amazon in the state of Acre. I am the chief of my village, my community called Nova Esperança.
E, bom, vou tentar ser breve, tentar resumir um pouco da história, né, do meu povo, da minha família, do trabalho que eu venho executando junto também com meus parentes, a família Yawanawa, hoje dentro do nosso território.
So I'm going to try and be brief and tell a little bit of the story of my people and the work that I've been doing together with my family in our communities, in our territory.
O meu povo, assim como todos os nossos povos aqui, é de um tempo onde não se existia limites aos nossos territórios. Tudo, a terra que os nossos olhos podiam alcançar, podia pisar, eram nossos territórios.
So my people, and I believe all of us here today, the speakers here on this panel, work from a time before limits existed within our territories, that all of the forest where we walked on was all a part of our land, our territory.
Mas com o avanço, né, o crescimento do mundo, junto com os outros povos, principalmente o povo Uruanawa, que é o povo branco, começaram a chegar perto das nossas terras e impondo limites, né, e a sua crença, a sua cultura, a sua língua sobre a história dos nossos povos.
But over time, with the growth of the people that we call Ruanawa, the non-indigenous people, they started to approach our territories and with this impose their own limits and their beliefs onto us and to our people and our territories.
Vivíamos nos nossos territórios livres, em harmonia com a natureza, com tudo que estava à nossa volta, até chegar o homem branco e trazendo a doença, trazendo a escravidão, trazendo todas essas energias ruins até nós.
So we lived free within our territories until the moment came that the white man showed up bringing this disease and all of these ailments onto our territories.
O meu povo foi escravo por mais de 3 décadas pelos patrões seringalistas que invadiram a floresta amazônica em busca, né, do látex, da borracha, e assim também como missionários evangélicos também adentraram nossos territórios e também nos escravizaram espiritualmente.
My people were enslaved for over 3 decades by the rubber lords who invaded our territories in search of the rubber trees, and as well as the missionaries who enslaved us spiritually.
E durante todas essas décadas, o meu povo foi proibido de falar sua própria língua, de usar as nossas próprias plantas para se curar, de fazer nossas cerimônias, rituais sagrados, para poder aprender a língua que eles disseram que era que nós tínhamos que aprender, que era dele, de venerar um Deus que eles encontram em papéis, em Bíblias, e fazendo com que nós apagássemos a nossa história.
So my people were forbidden to speak our own language and to practice our traditional rituals and ceremonies, and were made to believe in a God that was in their books and that we were meant to then follow these rules.
Mas depois de tantas décadas de opressão, de escravidão, conseguimos nos libertar, né? E dentro do conhecimento da nossa própria história, da nossa cultura, da nossa língua, conseguimos retomar de novo o controle de toda a civilização que é carregada através da nossa ancestralidade.
But after quite some time, we were able to free ourselves from these oppressors and send them away. And through our elders and the knowledge that we had kept, we are able to re-empower ourselves and reclaim our culture and our knowledge and our spirituality.
Hoje, o povo Yawanawa vive uma fase, né, de desenvolvimento dentro da nossa história e também buscando novas formas de sustentabilidade, de continuar sobrevivendo ainda nos nossos territórios.
So today, the Yawanawa people are living a new phase of development within our territories, seeking out new ways of working with our own knowledge systems and development within our territories.
Eu, desde pequeno, acompanho meu pai, que é uma grande liderança do meu povo, assim como meus tios, meus avós, e venho crescendo, aprendendo sobre a história, sobre, né, a espiritualidade do povo Yawanawa.
So I have been, since I was a young child, accompanying my father, who is a great leader of our people, learning from him, as well as my uncles and my grandparents, about the ways of the Yawanawa people.
E dentro do que eu tenho ouvido dos meus avós, dos meus ancestrais, da minha família, tudo parte do conhecimento. Um povo sem conhecer sua própria história, sem saber a sua história de luta, ele não tem forças para caminhar para nenhum outro lugar, se ele não se reconhece quem ele realmente é.
And what I've been learning from my grandparents, from my ancestors, is that a people who does not know their own selves, their identity, their stories, their battles, they cannot continue on without knowing their selves.
Durante esse período de escravidão, o nosso povo, foram mais de 30 décadas, todas as crianças que nasceram nesse período não falavam mais a língua Yawanawa, porque era proibido. Tínhamos que aprender a língua portuguesa.
So during this time, this over 3 decades that we were enslaved, our people were no longer speaking our own language because we were made to speak the colonizers' language, Portuguese, and we were not allowed to speak our own language.
E com isso, o nosso povo, né, perdeu muitos falantes da nossa própria língua. E vendo toda essa necessidade, né, de reconexão com a nossa própria essência, com a nossa própria ancestralidade, o único meio, como uma liderança jovem hoje, eu pude enxergar na educação, né, no resgate da nossa língua, a segurança do futuro da nação Yawanawa.
So with our people no longer speaking our language, the youth, the children, I understood that it is through education that we will be able to reclaim our story, our culture, our identity, and our traditions of the Yawanawa people.
Então, eu criei uma escola do estudo da língua e das tradições Yawanawa para poder trabalhar hoje com as crianças e a juventude, né, da minha família.
So I've created a school of language and Yawanawa language and traditions, so I can work with the education of our children, of our family.
Quero, junto com a minha família, com os meus professores, preparar essa juventude. Hoje nós somos uma população de 1.275 Yawanawa.
So I would like to, together with my family and our teachers, work with this. Nowadays, we are a population of about 1,200 Yawanawa.
Há menos de 80 anos atrás, nós éramos menos de 50.
Less than 80 years ago, we were less than 50.
Ficamos durante muitos anos numa lista dos povos indígenas que estavam em risco de extinção no Brasil.
During many years, we were on the list of endangered indigenous peoples of Brazil.
Hoje somos 1.275 Yawanawa e temos apenas 32 falantes da nossa própria língua.
Today we are 1,275 Yawanawa people, but we have only 32 speakers of our Yawanawa language.
Como eu posso dormir bem, seguro, sabendo que em cerca de 20, 15, 30 anos, talvez o meu povo não tenha mais a própria língua?
How can I sleep well and safe, knowing that perhaps in another 15, 30 years, we may have lost our language?
Como as próximas gerações Yawanawa vão viajar pelo mundo, vir falar sobre a sua própria história, se eles a perderem?
How will the next generations travel the world without knowing their own language?
Hoje, né, somos muitas nações indígenas no Brasil e fora dela, em todo lugar do mundo, cada um com a sua particularidade, com a sua história, mas ao mesmo tempo estamos todos conectados pela necessidade, né, de sobreviver.
Nowadays, we are hundreds of indigenous nations in Brazil, and each one of us connected through our stories and with the need for survival.
E é essa necessidade que nos conecta, que faz a gente se fortalecer e entender o sentido de unificar, de fazer, né, que todos esses trabalhos aconteçam juntos, fortalecendo uns aos outros.
And it's this what connects us and unifies us, understanding this need to work on what it is that brings us all together.
Então é como minha parente Krenak falou, não se pode deixar essa fonte do conhecimento secar dentro do nosso espírito, dentro do nosso corpo.
So it's like my Krenaki relative said, we must not allow this fountain of knowledge to dry within our people, our spirits.
E hoje, junto com minha família, eu estou trabalhando para que essa fonte não seque, ensinando esses jovens, essas crianças a conhecer a sua própria história através da sua língua, para que elas não se percam num futuro próximo.
So nowadays I'm working within my people and my family and my community for this fountain to not go dry, teaching our family, teaching our children about our own selves, our identity, so that we may continue on.
Então é a educação, o conhecimento, independente da sua língua, da sua história, é que vai, né, te levar para qualquer lugar do mundo que você queira ir. Mas você precisa entender quem você é, de onde você vem.
Through education and knowledge, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. This is how you will be able to continue on understanding who you are and where you're coming from.
Então eu me sinto muito honrado por poder compartilhar um pouco da história, né, da minha família e esse trabalho através da educação que hoje a gente vem fazendo para poder, né, mantermos vivo a nossa história, a nossa ancestralidade, a nossa espiritualidade acima de qualquer coisa.
So it's an honor for me to come here and share a little bit with all of you about the work that I've been doing to keep our people, our story, our ancestry alive.
Apesar de ser muito jovem, tenho uma responsabilidade muito grande perante o meu povo, principalmente perante a comunidade a qual lidero. Por 85% da população da aldeia Nova Esperança hoje são jovens e crianças.
And although I am very young, I carry great responsibility as the leader of my community, where 85% of us are children and youth.
Então eu tenho que tentar ser um líder melhor, um pai, um esposo, um amigo, uma pessoa que realmente se dedique a esse trabalho de poder continuar ainda lutando ainda pelas nossas famílias.
So I am dedicated in this way to being a better leader and father and husband and friend, and to work for our people, for the betterment of our families and our communities.
Honro e respeito a todos os meus parentes, os povos originários, né, de onde nós viemos, e estamos juntos, né, para buscar, para trabalhar por um futuro melhor, não só dos nossos territórios, mas do mundo, pela necessidade que hoje nós vivemos.
So I honor and respect my relatives here, and want to say that we are together in this fight for a better community, for a better world, not just for our communities, but for the world.
É muito a ser compartilhado, mas precisaríamos de muitas e muitas noites para podermos expressar, compartilhar o conhecimento, a história que cada povo tem aqui em cima dessa terra.
There's much to be shared, but we would need many more days in order to speak of all of the knowledge that our peoples have here on this earth.
Mas já demos um primeiro passo, isso é muito importante.
But it's a first step, and this is very important.
E isso é o começo, ou talvez a continuidade, né, de uma grande mudança que essa juventude hoje, que está se despertando para a necessidade hoje do planeta, vai trabalhar para toda a humanidade.
This is just the beginning, or perhaps the continuation of what the work that this youth present here today is doing to awaken a new time of change for all of humanity.
Obrigado.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and your experiences. I think that we many times forget about the connection between cultural diversity and the importance of language, and the connection between indigenous local languages and the land, because land shapes us, land shapes our language, and there is key knowledge in our original indigenous languages that are being lost because of extractive industries, because of colonization, and that is a fight that we also need to pick up as indigenous youth to ensure the continuation of our languages, because it is related to the continuation of our culture and our territories and all living beings in those territories. Taili, Terena, you are part of Youth Collective, Inamati Shane, is that how you say it? And you are also a great advocate for Indigenous women and Indigenous young women, and we would love to hear from you about your work and solutions that you are proposing in your community.
Thank you, Nina, and good evening, everyone. I want to first say thank you for the space that my relatives here from the Amazon open. I'm not from the Amazon, my people is not from the Amazon. As Shirley said, there is other environments in Brazil, so I come from the Cerrado and Pantanal, not that known as the Amazon, but has the same importance for the planet as the Amazon, because there is the bird, the cradle of the waters. So I want to share a little bit with you the story of my people so you can understand the context that we are and that we are living as youth right now. My people was contacted in the 16th century, and since the contact, the colonizers said many times that we were gonna be killed, that we're not gonna exist. There was also a program of the government during the dictator time, and sorry if I'm saying something wrong in English. It's sometimes difficult, but I hope you can understand, because I know if I speak in English, more people will pay attention, because the ear is not trained to listen from different languages. That's why I'm choosing to speak in English and not in Portuguese. I hope that more people can hear what I have to say. And so in the dictator time, they had a plan for my people and how we could be totally immersed in the Western society. So they changed all the way our community used to like. The traditional houses, the traditional way of distribution of the families, and also our language and spirituality. I come from a family of leaderships, but I have the bird, well, at least I consider for many years there was a bird to be born in the city, because this made me grow far from my culture, but it makes me grow with a bigger responsibility, because living the both worlds, I have to bring something back for my community. What I've learned, what I lived inside the city. Sorry, because I'm listening to you, and pardon, sorry, it's because I'm listening myself. And So with this bird, I grow without knowing like how to speak my own language, because my parents decided that it was better for me to learn Portuguese and English so I can spread the word that my people had to say it. And the colonizer couldn't kill us. We're still surviving despite all the history that we faced. And nowadays we have difficult situation because we are considered warrior people, a resilient people. We were in the war that guaranteed Brazil territory in the border with Paraguay, but the colonizer didn't recognize that. They split us in small islands of territories, of lands, and they didn't give us any water, any resources, and they grew a bunch of agribusiness farmers around us. This made us, and especially our men, to move from the communities, to work, to have money, and then to come back. Because in our lands, there's no possible anymore to grow food. It's not possible to hunt anymore. Because with the agribusiness around the territory, the animals start to disappear, the water start to draw, and there was no perspectives. So I have this responsibility to what I can bring back for my community. And I'm glad to say that even that I didn't have the opportunity to grow in the community, I have the opportunity to learn with my parents, my grandmother, what is the essential of our people. So the church was really, really bad to us. And sorry if someone here is Christian, I respect, but the problem is when they try to impose your culture to us. They killed our shamans, our little spiritual leaders. And nowadays, if you go in a community and ask for the shaman, there is none. People would say there is none, despite there is. And I'm sorry I got emotion. Because this is really serious. The youth nowadays is getting in crisis because our spirituality is being lost. So we create this this group in Amatiané, Terenoé, that is like the youth, the Terena youth, so we can bring back this knowledge of our elders. So we'll not let it go. The pandemic was really bad for our people. Terena was one of the most affected people in pandemic. With the situation that Shirley and also Wanda shared about not being recognized to be in the city or not being recognized to be in a not demarcated land, we didn't have support. And even that we tried to find support from other, beyond the government, it was denied to reach in our lands. So we lost many lives. I lost many special people in my family. And I know I am emotional because before I got in, I felt that they were here with me. I lost my uncle, I lost my grandmother, and they were the ones that always said to me that I was in the city because I had a mission. I had a mission to bring our voice of a people, but also the mission to bring back what I have learned in the city to my community. And with this collective, we understand how is the importance of the youth to keep our tradition alive. How it's important for us to listen our elders, to maintain alive our ancestors. Yes, we are living in the city. Yes, we're going to the university. Yes, we are going outside to work. But this doesn't mean that we are losing our identity. It's actually the opposite. We are getting stronger, you know? because when we understand who we are, it's not upon the other to decide it, who I am, who, English, oh my God. It's because I'm not emotional and I'm sorry for that. So our collective is working to create possibilities for the youth that for many, many years it was denied. We didn't have the chance to reproduce our dances, and I'm really glad that I'm here with my partner. There is a traditional chief for our dance. He's also a youth, and we are together in the collective, in the group of the youth in Amatixané. We also use the communication because nowadays we understand that these cameras is a powerful tool we keep our knowledge, but also to spread the fight that we are facing in our territory. As I said, our territories were divided in small islands, and this year we completed 10 years that we are reclaiming our lands back, so we call it retomadas. And in our region, we have more than 10 retomadas that we took it back from the farmers. And with these retomadas, we are seeing that the forest is growing, the animals are getting back, and also how the youth can be connected with the land. We are working for projects in our community that give us opportunity to work with the land, to the traditional medicines, to recover deforestation regions, because I think many of you heard a couple years ago about the big forests or big fires in the Amazon. But all that started in Pantanal, you know? And Pantanal was really damaged by the fires and didn't have the same attention that the Amazon. And nowadays, and I want to share this story, I don't know if I'm already speaking too much, there is this thing about time, yes, because for us in traditional communities, we only finish the meeting when the subject is ended. So we would keep talking and talking because there is a lot of things to say that you are not aware of it. And this is a unique opportunity that we have it here to share, because I never been to Africa before. This is actually my 4th COP, but because I am learning, and in a sad way, because when I've heard a COP for the first time, I expected something really different, and not that we have to come here and fight it. You know, I thought I would be in an environment that will be talking about actions, not negotiating. And this, like, it hurts me a lot that we are talking about how to save the planet, but we have to negotiate. So, to finish, I think, and then we maybe can talk later, I want to bring the story, and this is the project that now our group is focused on, is to recover a lagoon, and, well, how can I say, where the water, no, where it's burned? No. Spring, okay. So spring, it's a region, so Pantanal, it's the wetlands of Brazil. It has natural floods during the years, and then they dry, okay? So, but what we notice is that from the 5 years, 6 years ago, the floods are not happening as they used to. The dry season actually is getting too hard, and this year, this specific spring, this is specific spring, we saw that is really dry, and actually we could see a lot of dead fishes. Like the water couldn't reach here in the place that we used to swim, like really go deeper in the water. So we, as youth group from the community, we got really worried because it's not filling anymore filling the water in the lagoon. And so we went to the elders to hear from them what they know about that. And because of the religion, as I said, the Protestants went to our communities long time ago, and they killed our shamans. So those stories are like hidden for us, the youth. So in the kind of way, the elders to protect us, so we do not face the same things that they suffer, but we keep trying, and as a secret, they tell us the stories. So there is the spirit of the water, Enone, that lives in this spring. And they used to say that Enone, to time, so when the rain season comes, she would travel to other rivers, to other lagoons. Like every time that the rain comes, she would fly away with the wind, you know? But when the dry season started to get really hard, Enone could not find the way back. It was every time getting more difficult to find the way back. And now they say that Enone is really hurt and sad with us. But not us as Terena people, with the humanity. She's now hiding herself to protect herself. And Enone is a spirit that guides and protected me. And for many years I didn't understand that. I just have confusions, spiritual things going on, because I didn't have the shaman to guide me. So I have to learn with my own dreams, with my own intuitions, and through the stories that they told us as secret. Now, when we heard this story, when we saw the dry that is reaching our region, and ironically, we are in the place that it used to flood. There is a lot of rain, but we have no water. We are, as youth, that live in the both worlds. So I graduated in the university. I am anthropology. He's a geography. We have a communicator in our group. We have teachers. We have bunch of youth that went to your place to study, but now are trying to get back our traditional knowledge because we see ourselves in a crucial moment. And I don't know if you ever heard about the 7 generations. So we need to think about our actions, and this is what guide our group. We have 7 generations, and we are in the middle of it. So you always have to think in 3 generations that went back to us, so we can always remember what happened in our past. So we not forget what our people faced, what they fought for, and what is the knowledge that guide our people. But we also have to think from 3 generations beyond. So how are we gonna give and lead the planet for them? And through this knowledge, through this idea, and through this perspective, Inama Tixané was created. We don't have sponsors, unfortunately, because there is sometimes many opportunities for people in the Amazon, but we cannot apply for those opportunities because we're not in that region. And we face a lot of problems to get some funds, but even that we didn't have any, we decided to create the group because we see the importance and the responsibility that we have it. So I want to say thank you for the space for the moment, and also because you're hearing, and I hope these words not only get in your, as Shirley said, in your heart, like here, but also in your spirit. And I would say spirit like this, not because of the heart, but because for us, when you talk, you have to talk to the others so you can feel it in your spirit. Because if you only hit your mind, and I know your people, it's really racial, like rational? Rational, thank you. thank you. And this is collective work. Yeah. And I want to say thank you for your kind and your listening. Yes. Ay na po yakwe.
Thank you so much. The loss that Indigenous youth and children are experiencing and feeling is real, and that is why I was saying in the beginning and asking everyone to be mindful, because the loss of our elders, the loss of our language, the loss of our land, of the animals, is all interconnected, and we feel the loss in our bodies and our spirits. And thank you for sharing. I was very, very touched. Well, the responsibility that has been placed on Indigenous youth is tremendous. Not by choice, but because we were born as Indigenous. And you were speaking about the spirit of water. I would like to invite Alexis Grefa to speak, because Alexis is a young leader from the Quechua people of Santa Clara, and he has been fighting for the last few years, protecting a river that his people depends upon. So please, Alexis, share with us about what you and the youth in your community are doing.
Halituta, Tukuiguna. Buenas noches con todos. Qué gusto estar aquí.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be here.
Quiero empezar compartiendo con ustedes una alegría súper hermosa para mí.